All right, hi guys. Welcome to video 5 in the Ayurveda Introduction to Ayurveda series. So, just to kind of recap so far, video 1 of Introduction to Ayurveda was the history of Ayurveda and really trying to explain what is Ayurveda, where does it come from, and how I found it and kind of my journey through it. Video 2 really went into the elements. So, the elements and their corresponding qualities and how they exist in everything around us. The foods that we eat, the things that we smell, the things that we hear and touch, and and then also within us, Following up on the elements, we went into the doshas. So the elements kind of get grouped into the elements and their qualities kind of get grouped into one of the three doshas, either vata, pitta, or kapha. And once we can start to recognize the qualities of of the things that are all around us, and once we're able to recognize the qualities within us and understand what our dosha is, and then also kind of recognize any symptoms of imbalance that we may be experiencing, then we can start to heal ourselves. And so that's kind of what we're going to go into today in video 5. But video 4, we kind of went into some of the daily practices of Ayurveda, which I think are fun. And I definitely try to implement those into my life. If I'm being 100% honest, it's a lot. So when I went through my Ayurveda certification program, they kind of recommended that we wake up earlier and fit all of those practices in to our daily routine before we even start our day. And I remember at the time, I think my son was like a junior or senior in high school, and so he was running cross country and had meets all the time, and my daughter was playing club volleyball, travel volleyball, and so her practices weren't over until 10 o'clock at night. And just kind of being in that frame of like a crazy overworked mom. I remember being a little resentful of the teachers when they told us that, like, yeah, you should be able to fit this in to all of these practices into your morning before you start your day. And I remember being like, are you guys crazy? Like, dude, I'm tired. I don't have time to barely even make dinner every night. And you want me to do all of this too? So I'm telling you this because don't feel pressured to have to fit all of those practices in to your daily routine every single day. All right, if you can pick one or two and just kind of stick with those and make it a part of your habit, then that's fine. And then, if you do like a whole self-care Sunday kind of thing, then treat yourself to the luxury of doing all of those practices, and then giving yourself like a nice meditation while you're soaking in the tub, or reading a book or whatever. So I just want to say really quick, the daily practices are fun. I do them on a regular basis. I don't do them on a daily basis. So if I'm being honest, I don't. I do tongue scrape. So that one's just easy because you brush your teeth and then you tongue scrape. The Abhyanga, again, I'll just do Abhyanga on my hands and feet. I don't always do it all over my body, which you're supposed to. You're supposed to do it all over your body, your ears, like everywhere. And so yeah, just don't put pressure on yourself to try to fit it all in. So today's video is more about the dietary guidelines of Ayurveda based on your dosha. So hopefully you've done the dosha quizzes. And there's another dosha quiz on Banyan Botanicals website that I will, let me make a note of that. So I'm definitely going to link that quiz in the email. So take that one as well. Banyan quiz. Because I found that the more quizzes you take to figure out your dosha, the more you get comfortable with it and the more you really begin to understand. So take as many Ayurveda quizzes and dosha quizzes as you come across. That's my recommendation. Now, if you were to make the decision to go see an Ayurvedic practitioner, understand that the quiz they will give you will be a lot more extensive. So they will give you a dosha quiz based on your body and your physical features. They will give you another dosha quiz for your pathology, and they will also take their own notes. So oftentimes we don't see ourselves the way other people see us. Okay, so for an example, when I first started learning about this, and in class, when our classmates, when we had to kind of analyze each other and give each other dosha quizzes, I really didn't want to admit that I had a kappa nose. My nose is kind of, it's not big, but it's kind of rounder, and it starts up really high, and it's kind of like a thicker, rounder nose. And so I was like, no, I don't have a kappa nose. And all my classmates were like, a little bit, yeah. So I was like, oh man, okay, fine. So a practitioner will probably have a more unbiased view. And so if you were to go see a practitioner, just know that the analysis of your doshas would be a lot more extensive. And they would also go more into depth about your lifestyle, your patterns of behavior, your digestive, your current digestive um, patterns, and past digestive patterns. They'll go into your menstruation. What does it look like? What is it hot? Is it dry? Is it heavy? How regular are you, or are you irregular? And then also a practitioner will do a tongue analysis. So they'll look at your tongue, and you can learn a lot about a person's digestive health from their tongue. It's fascinating. So they'll look at your tongue, the shape of your tongue, the color of your tongue, the texture of your tongue. And so all of that gets written down. They will do a pulse analysis on you. So they'll take your pulse. They'll look at your hands. So they'll look at your hands, and again, you can see a person's constitution or original dosha. You can see a lot of that by looking at their hand. So just to kind of give you an example here, my hand, it's a little all over the place. so if you see the shape of my palm, it's not completely square. So you can see how, like, it doesn't really line up. It's not square. It's more angular. It kind of like dips down at an angle. So that is definitely a vata characteristic. But my fingers are not super long and vata-like. So my fingers can be more like kapha pitta. But then the texture of my hand is very thin and very soft, which again is more vata. Another thing that you can do to kind of get an idea of somebody's dosha is feel the texture of their skin. So my skin is very, very thin, as you can see. If you can pull somebody's skin up and get a lot of skin, that means they have very thin texture in their skin, and that is a vata trait. So, and not everybody can do this. So it's interesting, when we were analyzing each other, classmates, through the certification, it was really interesting to see other people's like tongues and other people's hands and palms, because they're not things you think about very often. But uh, yeah, I didn't realize. I just thought I thought you could do this to everybody. I thought everybody could do this. And learning that that's not true. A lot of people have really thick, just naturally thicker, more dense, kappa-like skin texture. So just an example, right, of if you were to go see a practitioner, how much more extensive it is. Now, also know that within the doshas, there are subdoshas. So there are subdoshas within the doshas, and then there are marma points within the elements. So it gets really extensive. It's a fascinating medicinal practice. If you are interested, excuse me, if you're interested in learning more when the series is done, then just kind of reach out to me and I can definitely help you find what the next steps are. But going into video 5, all right, what I really love about Ayurveda, which I said in the first video, is having 20 years of gym experience and offering nutritional guidelines in a traditional guidance in a traditional gym setting, I found was very overwhelming. So 20 years in the gym, when I went through periods of like, okay, I'm going to really hone in on my diet. I'm going to stick to my nutrition, and I'm going to lead by example. I mean, it was just overwhelming because I felt like I was always counting calories and always thinking about my macros, and food became so scientific. And I don't like that. I don't like having my whole day revolve around food, and then getting anxiety if like I didn't hit my numbers right, or getting hard on myself because I didn't quite get my macros, the macros that I needed. So Ayurveda takes all of that science, overwhelming science stuff out of it. And once you kind of learn to recognize the elements and the doshas and then the symptoms of those imbalances, then it's really easy to start to understand how to treat those symptoms of imbalance with opposite qualities. All right. And it's really that simple. It ends up becoming that simple. And you're just like, wow. So what ends up becoming the biggest challenge in Ayurveda is failure of the intellect. So if you are overheated and your system is overheated and you know that your digestive is hot and you're feeling heartburn and you're feeling heavy hot gas and bloating, but yet you're still drinking coffee, which is a very hot and acidic food that will contribute to more heat within the body, that is an example of failure of the intellect. If you are very heavy and sluggish and your digestion is backed up, and you know that the best way to treat those symptoms is by exposing yourself to foods with the opposite qualities. So you wouldn't want to eat more heavy, oily foods. You would want to eat foods that are opposite, so lighter and airy. And if you fail to do so, that is failure of the intellect. So when it comes to Ayurvedic nutrition and the basic guidelines for eating Ayurvedically, it's really as simple as just healing yourself with opposite qualities. And like I said, the biggest challenge is just failure of the intellect. We know that we should do better, but we don't. All right. So there's a certain level of accountability and self-awareness that also comes with Ayurveda. So with that, the nature of medicine, the nature of food in Ayurveda, the goal is to bring us back into enlightenment with our prakriti, which is our original doshic makeup, what we were originally born with, okay? We use the qualities of the elements within the doshas to bring us back into balance. And so, like I said, we're going to kind of go into that with one of the more obvious ways and that is food. Um, food it's so important because we're exposed to it all day, every day. And all right, so I'm going to kind of go over before we really dive into foods. I'm just going to briefly go over some of the imbalances in the different doshas. So if you're experiencing any of these imbalances, then jot it down. Okay, make a note of it. Imbalances of a vata dosha would be cold. So people who are always cold, like their fingers and their toes are always cold, and no matter how many blankets and sweaters they put on, they're still just like their fingers, their hands, and their feet are always cold. That is a vata imbalance. Dry skin is a vata imbalance. Weight loss, but a more dry, emaciated type of weight loss is a vata imbalance. Tics and tremors. So when I was a kid, I was that kid in school in the classroom that would have my pencil and was always doing this. I'd sit in class and just do this. And then my friends would be like, stop, stop. This is a vata imbalance or a symptom of a vata imbalance. Or people who are always shaking their feet. That's vata. And constipation. So like a dry constipation, inability to focus. Those are all gas and bloating is a vata imbalance. Imbalances in pitta dosha, so some of the more common ones would be burning sensations. Again, indigestion, heartburn, fevers out of nowhere. That stems from a pitta imbalance. Oily skin, so in teenagers who have really oily skin and a lot of acne, that's a vata or a pitta imbalance. People, when they speak and their speech is very sharp, so they're very sharp-tongued and very direct and to the point, that stems from a pitta imbalance. Any type of red skin rashes or heat rashes, and volatile personality, so quick, short tempers. Those are all stemming from vata or pitta imbalances. Any type of like bloodshot eyes, excessive sweat. And again, when it comes to the digestion, any type of like heat symptoms in the digestion, diarrhea is a symptom of a pitta imbalance, having too much fire in your makeup. Now, moving on to kapha dosha. So symptoms of a kapha dosha imbalance: cold, pale, clammy skin, weight gain, especially a soft weight gain, so where the tissues are more soft and squishy, and mucus, so when people are very mucousy, and that is a kapha imbalance. More noticeable tissue increase, so an example of that would be skin tags. So when you see people who have or start to develop a lot of skin tags around their neck area, that would be a symptom of a kapha imbalance. So too many earth-like qualities in their system. When it comes to digestion, a slow and sluggish digestion, or like a feeling backed up. So a constipation, but different than vata constipation, where vata constipation is very dry and hard. Kapha constipation comes more from being like backed up. So if you think of the kapha elements, earth and water, and if you think of their qualities, cold, heavy, dense, I visualize mud. And so digestively, I visualize like just a lot of stuck mud in their digestive tract, which ends up leading to constipation and bloating, but not from gas, more bloating from just like backed up, like a backed up system. So that's a kapha imbalance. The basis of treatment is to take in the opposite qualities through the five senses. So you want to treat cold with heat. You want to treat dryness with moistness. You want to treat heaviness with lightness, treat mobility with stability, and so on and so forth. Think of it like this. Like increases like, opposites balance. So I'm going to say that again. Like increases like, opposites balance. So if, again, let's take the kapha imbalance for an example. So if you feel sluggish and heavy and your system is backed up, the qualities of that are heavy, dense, and cold. Like will increase like. So if you're exposing yourself to elements that are heavy, dense, and cold, you're just going to increase all of those elements within you. And when I say you take it in, you treat through all of the five senses, the most obvious way to treat imbalances is with food. But keep in mind that everything that we're exposed to will either increase, like for like increases like, or will give you the opposite quality. So again, if we're thinking of a kapha dosha, heavy, dense, backed up, you don't want to eat foods that are heavy and dense. You want to treat, because like will increase like. You want to treat with opposite qualities. So you would want to expose yourself to foods that are warm and light and airy and maybe even dry and heating. So that would be one way to expose yourself to opposite qualities through food, but even through like touch. So heavy, dense, and cold, you don't want to sit in a room that is heavy, dense, and cold, right? So you would want to turn up the heat, make the room warmer, maybe put on some warmer clothes, and maybe light a fire in your fireplace. Even aromatherapies. So if you expose yourself to candles or essential oils, you would want to expose yourself to smells that are heating, such as cinnamon or, any type of like cinnamon is very heating. If you like, like chili peppers, I'm from the Southwest, and especially like in New Mexico, they hang up dried chili peppers everywhere, and you walk in and you can smell it. So that would be exposing yourself to opposite qualities, and that would definitely also contribute to helping to bring you back into balance. So those are just some examples, right? A couple of things to keep in mind when thinking about qualities and how to treat yourself. Anything that mixes with pitta becomes hot because heat will override the other qualities. Anything that mixes with kapha will become heavy because heavy overrides the other qualities. Vata is a little trickier. When something mixes with vata, it tends to become more mobile, but this is not always observed in the kapha body because vata is too subtle to move a large mass. So just a few things to keep in mind. Now, let's go ahead. And I'm gonna send you guys copies of all these notes. So these will be attached in the email. And now here, I have a lot. And again, I'm gonna send you copies of all this stuff. But I have some dietary guidelines for each of the doshas. And I'm just gonna kind of roughly go over this. Like I said, I will email this to you guys. I will send it in an attachment. So you'll have a copy of all this. And please write down questions so that we can discuss them when we do our one-on-one consults, okay? Because I really want you to I want you to understand the doshas and the elements. But quick overview, keeping in mind the qualities, right? So you're treating the doshas with opposite qualities. Vata is very light. So we want to expose people with vata imbalances with foods that are heavier. Okay. Pitta is very hot. So we want to expose people with pitta imbalances to foods that are cooler. And kapha is very heavy and cold. So we want to treat kapha imbalance with foods that are lighter and warmer. Okay. So examples here, dairies for each of the doshas. A vata dosha I would definitely recommend whole milk. I would recommend butter, ghee, cream cheese. And pitta, definitely you want to go with maybe some cooler stuff. So soy and rice milk. And kapha, I would definitely recommend that somebody with a strong kapha imbalance just try to avoid as much dairy as possible, because dairy can be, again, it has all those kapha qualities. It's cold, it's dense, it's heavy. It even comes from like an earthy source, if you think about that. Rice milk might also be okay for kapha dosha, but again, I'm going to send you guys all this. And we're just going to kind of go over this briefly, because otherwise this video will be forever long. Lentils and beans for each dosha. Vata, mung beans and tofu. Pitta, pinto beans, kidney beans, black beans are good for pitta. For kaphas, split peas, lentils, lima, beans. Nuts for the doshas. Vata, actually nuts are very good for people with vata doshas because they contain all of these naturally like heavy oils. So almonds, cashews, pecans, Brazil nuts, macadamia, pistachios, walnuts, like all of it. Vatas can eat nuts all day, every day. Pittas definitely want to go with nuts that have cooler qualities. Nuts and oils. So coconut is a perfect, very good food for somebody with a pitta dosha. Now kaphas, again, I would recommend that kaphas kind of stay away from the nuts and the nut oils. If they definitely like want to eat a nut, walnuts would probably be the best for kapha dosha. Seeds, for vata, sesame, poppy seed. Pittas, sunflower seeds, pumpkin seeds, very good for them. Kaphas, caraway seeds, pumpkin seeds. Fruits. So vata wants to expose themselves to heavier, more dense fruits, bananas, dates, figs, mangoes. Pittas want to expose themselves to fruits that are more sweet and cooling. So mangoes, melons, peaches, raspberries, strawberries. Kaphas want to expose themselves to fruits that are more, they're lighter and maybe a little bitter. So like the sour apples, cranberries, grapefruits, pomegranates would be good for kaphas. Vegetables, there's just a huge list here of vegetables. But to kind of round it out, vatas would want to stay away from any raw vegetables. So raw vegetables are cold, right? And dry. Vata dosha is, the elements of vata dosha are cold and dry. Like increases like. So vatas definitely want to expose themselves more to cooked vegetables. The heavier root vegetables are perfect for vata dosha. So sweet potatoes, anything that grows under the earth, carrots, turnips, beets, onions, garlic. And again, vatas want to stay away from raw vegetables. Pittas can eat the raw vegetables. The raw vegetables are good for them because they're cooling. So the leafy greens are very good for pittas. Celery, cilantro is naturally very cooling. It's a very cooling food. Cucumbers are very cooling. Spinach, squash, peas. Kaphas want to stay away from the heavier root vegetables. And again, the raw vegetables are excellent for kappas. They would definitely want to expose themselves more to the bitter vegetables, as bitter is very cleansing and light. Um, so bitter melon is actually very good. The chilies are very good. Any type of peppers and chilies are good for kapha doshas. Um, onions, parsley, again, garlic because it's very heating, so it counteracts the cold element of kapha dosha. Meat, vatas want to eat meat. Dark meat, pork, lamb, goat, beef. Pittas can eat meat, but on a moderate basis, and kappas should really try to avoid it as much as possible. Now, it's interesting because if you go to yoga studios, most yogis, a lot of yogis are naturally very thin and frail and light. So they're naturally like vata type people. And then they become vegetarians, so they don't eat any meat. And if you do get to know these people, oftentimes you'll see the vata imbalances in them. And it's kind of funny because you know, we tend to gravitate to things that bring us more out of balance, ironically, like we do. So an example is me being pitta. I have a lot of pitta. I think that's probably my highest dosha is pitta dosha, even though I have a number of other characteristics of the other doshas. Mm. But being predominantly pitta, man, do I gravitate to things that would increase my pitta dosha. I love heat. I love the sun. I'm the type of person who can take a scorching shower at the end of the day and just sit in there. And when I get out of the shower, like my skin is red. It's so hot. Again, failure of the intellect on my part. I know I shouldn't be doing that. My favorite foods are foods that are naturally really hot. Cinnamon, cloves, garlic, onion, coffee. I love coffee, and coffee is very heating and acidic. So pittas should really not be drinking coffee. So I do limit myself to a couple cups a week. But yeah, so just keep in mind that you will naturally want the things that will bring you out of balance. So keep that in mind. That's, the irony of life. Oils for each dosha. Vata, almond oil, sweet almond oil is very good. Sesame oil, excellent for vata doshas. Olive oil is good for them, and they should definitely expose themselves to a large quantity of oils. Pittas do want to make sure that they are using cooling oils, so coconut, sunflower. Kappas want to stay away from oil as much as possible. So I'm not saying eliminate it, but you definitely want to limit the amount of oil that you're exposed to. Vatas, when it comes to sugars, honey, jaggery, sucanut, molasses is good. For pittas, maple syrup is good for them, and for kappas, small amounts of honey. Spices. So spices for each dosha. Now, I love spices, herbs and spices. Keep in mind, so you could use these spices in cooking, in seasoning your food, but you can also use these as teas, right, or infusions. So vata, good for vata is ginger, cinnamon, cumin, basil, thyme, salt. These are all very warm and grounding. Pittas want to stay away from the heat. So coriander, cilantro, fennel, cardamom, turmeric are very cooling, anti-inflammatory. And kappas, I think herbs and spices are actually really good for kappas. So if you are experiencing kapha imbalance, especially digestively, bring on the spices, baby, because they're good for you. Cook with them. You can make teas with them. So ginger, any of the hot peppers, good for you. Hot mustard, garlic, basil. These are all cinnamon. These are all lighter and drying and very warm. Um, and then I have all these. I have a summary of the Vata diet, which I will, again, I'm going to attach it and send it to you guys. So, healthy foods for Vata diets are lots of grains, dairies, nuts, more oils, heavy foods. Sample Vata breakfast would be oatmeal with butter, maybe some milk, pancakes, waffles, herbal teas for Vatas, chamomile, ginger, cinnamon, rice pudding, warm baked apples. Vata lunches would be any like cream based soups, cooked root vegetables, rice with ghee. Vata dinners, pastas, tomato sauce, baked potatoes, stir fry vegetables. Now, pittas, a healthy diet for pitta would be raw salads, heavy foods, because pitta is light, but heavy foods that are mildly spiced. So you want to hold back with the spicing. Cooling oils, unhealthy foods for pittas, coffee, spicy foods, Mexican, Indian, and I love the Mexican food. Wasabi, pickled gingers, any type of pickled foods. Those would be unhealthy for pitta. Again, I'm going to send you this, kind of go through it. Cooked root vegetables are good for pittas with a little bit of salt, mildly spiced. Salads with lots of raw vegetables. The diet for kapha would be foods that are bitter, pungent, and astringent. So healthy foods for kapha diets, salads, vegetables, especially raw vegetables, light and dry grains. Ice cream, yogurts, those are bad for kaphas, so they want to stay away from that. A sample of a kapha breakfast would be like a puffed rice cereal with a very light rice milk, soy milk, maybe with cardamom and ginger. Some good teas for kaphas are ginger, clove, and cinnamon teas. Salads are good for kaphas. Cooked buckwheat is good for them. Tofu without a lot of like sauces. So kaphas really want to stay away from like the sauces, the cheeses. Again, big, heavy meats and breads and butters. Clear based broth soups are very good for kaphas and kapha diets. Rye bread is very good because it's heating and dry. So yeah. So there we go. I'm going to attach all these to you guys and send them in the email. Again, if you have questions, please write them down. You can email me also if you don't want to wait until the consult. Just email me your questions. I do make it a habit to check my emails once every 24 hours. If I don't get back to you on a Saturday or a Sunday, know that I will get back to you first thing on Monday. I'm trying to think. So yeah, I mean, the foods are extensive, right? So when it comes to an Ayurvedic diet, don't feel overwhelmed. But definitely pay attention to when you're eating foods. Like just start to pay attention. You know, is this heavy? Is it light? Is the flavor cold? Or is it naturally heating? The texture of the foods that you're eating, are they soft? Are they rough? Are they smooth? So are they starchy? Are they sweet? So yeah, so just start to pay attention to the elements and the qualities of the foods that you're eating, and notice if they are contributing to the elements that you already have within you, or if they're counteracting the elements that you have in you. So that is the perfect place to start with Ayurveda. And uh, and the great thing about Ayurveda, once you really get a good grasp on the doshas and the elements and in yourself and in the foods, once you really get a grasp on that, then you start to become your own healer. And that's really what I love about Ayurveda and this practice, is that it puts the power of healing in your own hands. Whereas in the modern Western world that we live in, we definitely, in our society, we kind of take our health and put it in the hands of you know the healthcare system and even the government. We say to the government in this country, we say to the government, like, you should be telling us what to eat. You should have told us that this food was bad. You should have told us that this food had this type of symptoms. Well, Ayurveda says no. You pay attention to the foods that you're eating. Like, take the extra time to not just scarf your food down, get it in, get it out, move on with your day. No, take a few seconds to actually pay attention to your food, and pay attention to the elements and the qualities in those foods. And then you really do, it puts the power back in your hands. And that's what I love about this practice. But like I said, it's very extensive. We're starting out here with a brief overview of the diet. I do have some good books that let me see. And I will write these books down also in the email to kind of help you begin to understand. So here's a good one. It's called The Tastes of Ayurveda. All right. So I will add this to the email. And this is a good book because it has like so many recipes for all of the doshas. Now, if after taking that dosha quiz, you found that you're kind of even in one or two doshas, then that means that you're a dual dosha, and that's fine. And this book has recipes for that, for people who are dual dosha. And if you find that you're kind of even in all three of the doshas, that means you're tridoshic, and that's fine as well. So, all right, guys, I'm gonna stop for now, and we have one more video. In the next video, we will talk about prana and ojas, two more terms in Sanskrit that Ayurvedics live by. And I will send you recipes that are tridoshic next week or tomorrow, and recipes that are good for ojas. So just know that that's what the next video will be about. And with that, I hope you have a beautiful day, however much of that day is left. And I'll see you soon. All right, bye.